Hello everyone, my name is Eileen. I make crepe paper flowers under my brand Miss Petal and Bloom, and welcome to another crafting session with me. Today we are going to be making the famous cherry blossoms. Now these have been a very highly requested item and workshop, ever since I started Miss Petal and Bloom. And the reason why I don't really make them so often or teach them so often is because they are tedious to make. Now, don't get me wrong, the steps themselves, yeah, it's quite easy, it's quite manageable. So if you're a beginner, I think it will be fine, but just be warned that it's going to take a lot of time just to create a branch like this, and this is still a pretty short branch, like something like that is still pretty short. So to make one flower, it's gonna take you a little bit of time because everything is so small. The petals, the components, everything is teeny tiny, and it's gonna take a lot of eye power, it's gonna take a lot of muscle power. And so before we begin, I just would like to give you that disclaimer, that heads up, that be kind with yourself, be patient with yourself. If it's gonna take you a few weeks just to make one branch, just take your time. Do it slowly. If you find your fingers and your hands cramping, please take a break. I think the difficult part about this flower is because again, we are working with really small components. It is very hard on your fingers and hands, especially if it's your first time working on such a small scale. So, even I get like hand cramps sometimes when I'm making this particular flower. So do let your hands kind of get used to the movements and adjust and develop that muscle memory. Okay, and yes, we are going to jump into the materials you need, and then I will show you how I make my cherry blossoms step by step. Alright, so let's go over all the materials that you need. I'm going to start with the crepe paper first. As usual, I'm using Italian crepe paper. And the colors today are quite basic. You need a pink. This could be a light pink, a dark pink, kind of up to you. But the one I'm using for this current session is Sadapol's 08 Rosa. Alright, this is a nice baby pink, and you can find a similar shade on Carta Rossi, and you can go lighter or darker. So that's pink. The next color will be white. Right, and again, Carta Rossi has this, Sadapol has this, and the white is mainly for the stamen inside. So you see there's pink petals, there's a white stamen, and with each stamen there is a pop of that dark maroon or burgundy color. So that's the next color I'm going to show. Okay, the one I'm using for this class is 588. Ooh, let me get that focus. Yes, 588. This is from Carta Rossi. I'm not very sure if Sadapol has a similar shade, but generally I would say a darker red would work just fine. And the last two shades we need are browns. Alright, so I'm using this light brown from Sadapol. This is number 19. They call it dark brown on the label, but to me it's a lighter brown. And then I'm using Carta Rossi's 568 for my dark brown, and this is for the browns to connect the stem. So what I'm using here, I'll remove this and show you. Okay. So for the individual stalks, the flower stalks, I'm using a dark brown, and for the main connecting stalk, I'm using a light brown. Now this is completely optional. If you only have one brown, feel free to just use a brown for all of them. I've had a student who asked me, like, why not use green? Now green is totally feasible, it's completely up to you. I just don't really want greens. I like the browns to keep it in kind of that same kind of tonal landscape. But yeah, if you want to put in green, sure, go ahead, because there are real greens in the actual cherry blossoms. Okay, okie dokie. What else do we need? We need wires, and I'm using my florist wires number 26. Alright, this is the thin wire that I'm going to use for all my individual flowers. Alright, for example, these individual flower stems, you want it to be quite thin so that it's very bendable. Right, so 26 would be good, but again, with florist wires, if you go one size up, one size down, it should be okay. And then I use a number 20. This is a thicker wire. This is for the main stalks so that it holds everything. It has that weight and strength to hold all the blossoms in place, all right, without being weighed down by all the flowers. All right. So that's the wires. What else do you need? You need a white glue. I'm using my trusty Elmer's glue all. You need a good pair of scissors. You need wire cutters. Oh, let me grab this right here. Wire cutters. And what I like to do is to use a toothpick, all right? And this is for the glue, all right? Because we are working on a smaller scale, it's very impractical to just kind of blob the glue on our tiny little petal. So this is our petal, right? It's kind of impractical, just blob the glue right here because you can't control the amount of glue that comes out. If a whole blob comes out, your petal is going to be ruined and you have to throw this away. So what we're going to do is we're going to we're going to put some glue on a little glue plate, and you can use anything for this. You can use a dish, you can use rough paper scraps. I'm using sticker backing for this, and a toothpick to scrape it up and spread the glue. Yeah? Okay, so I think that's all we'll need, and we're gonna start crafting in the next section. Alright, so now I have our cherry blossom templates. Now I've printed it on a slightly thicker cardstock. Alright, let me just focus here. Slightly thicker cardstock so that it's more durable. So that's a tip I would like to give anyone who's crafting, templates would be more sturdy if you print them on a thicker cardstock. So I'm just going to cut them out and chat with you about them as we go along. So you'll notice that there are 3 different shapes, all right? You have A, B, C. A is clearly the flower petal, right? Your cherry blossom petal. All right, B would be for the stamen. So this one I'm cutting right here is the stamen. Let me focus it right now. All right, and I've drawn a dotted line on top, and that just indicates the little maroon border or fringe that's going to be on the top, right? So that's for your reference. And of course, we also have C, which is a tiny little rectangle, and that is what I call the collar, which I'm going to show you in a bit after I cut out my A petal. Okay, so these are my three sizes. So C is going to be this part here. All right, if you can see right here where I'm pointing, all right, underneath the stamen, it's bound together or wrapped together by a little maroon collar, and that just gives a pop of color in that middle section there. So it's not just white and pink, you have a little contrast, a little pop of maroon to kind of make your cherry blossom stand out. So that's kind of like my little secret, is that have that little collar there. Okay. So with these 3 templates, I'm going to leave them right here. We're going to start first by cutting our petals. And it's pretty straightforward, all right? You're just going to cut a strip of crepe, something like that, according to the size of your petal template. Okay, so about something like that, all right? Make sure that there is enough room here so that's not too squeezy. And it doesn't matter what length you cut because we are going to stretch this out. Now, the reason why I'm stretching this paper out is because if I'm using the original thickness of the 180 grams crepe, it's going to be very heavy and it doesn't give me that lightweight feel that I want for my cherry blossoms. I think cherry blossom flowers, they're characterized by being very kind of translucent and lightweight, and you want it to have that delicate feel rather than being very heavy. So you do stretch out your crepe. Notice that I'm not stretching it all the way out, not until like it's going to break. I'm just stretching it, all right, kind of like almost double its original size. And then from here, I'm going to cut out my petals using the accordion fold method. So how is accordion fold method done? You just align your petal to one edge, okay, of your entire strip, this edge. And from here, you're going to fold backwards and being sure to leave enough kind of room, right, on the sides. So these 2 sides, make sure there's enough room. All right, of course, if you want, you can try to squeeze as many petals as you can, but I would just be, a bit generous so that you're not stressing yourself out too much. So a stack like that would be great. And from here, you can cut out your petals. Now, what I like to tell all my students is that don't be too stressed out about cutting your petals perfect. What happens after this is that we're actually sculpting the petals, and from there on, if your petals are not completely symmetrical, or if they're a little lopsided, it's gonna be hidden after you sculpt the petals, so that's totally fine. Okay, so I have petals here, great, and now I'm going to show you how I sculpt my petals. It's very easy. This is called the sculpting, this is a sculpting technique called cupping, and basically we are stretching the crepe towards ourselves in a little half circle shape, a semicircle shape like this direction, okay, to create that concave shape, almost like a bowl or a cup, right, that you can hold like a water droplet or a popcorn seed. Popcorn seed? A popcorn kernel. Okay. So from here, I'm going to face this way. I'm going to pull it towards myself. Can you see immediately that semicircle comes out from here? Da-da-da. Okay. So from the side, you can see it. And then when I flip it upwards, you can see it is like a dish, right? That's depth to it. You can hold things in there. Now, if this part dips a little bit, if the top dips a little bit, that's totally fine. You can just very easily use your fingers and smoothen it out. I think that's the wonderful thing about Italian crepe is that it's so malleable, and you can kind of just it's like clay. You treat it like clay. If there's any imperfections, you just go ahead and use your fingers and encourage it a little bit and smoothen it out, and it will totally kind of respond to that pressure. Alright, so you can see these petals, they're not perfect, they're a little bit wonky, they're not, fully like round, perfectly round and symmetrical, but that's okay, because at the end of the day, no one's going to be like staring at your cherry blossom, that close and being like, that petal's uneven. It's about the overall look and the overall kind of abundance that I think characterizes the cherry blossom. So go for that overall feel rather than the tiny little details, okay? So you can see right now, I'm just kind of like cupping all my petals. If you want to get more familiar and more comfortable, you can go ahead and stack 2 petals together and sculpt these 2 together. That would work too. I would just recommend not to sculpt more than 2 petals, because that way your stack gets a bit too thick and your petal won't be as concave as they were if you sculpt them individually. Okay. Alright, so that's all my petals that I have. Of course, for one flower, you just need 5 petals. So let's just stop for now. Okay, and we're going to move on to the second one, which is the stamen. Alright, so the stamen, what you need is you need white crepe. And again, I've chopped up a little bit, but this is not at the height yet. So let me chop it off to the height of the template. Okay. I think that's a great thing about this project is you can use scrap papers. So little scraps that you have, like these and these, you can just kind of keep them and use them for this project. Okay, so I'm going to cut this stack according to the height of my template B. Okay, this one I'll use it later. And for this piece, yes, we're going to stretch it out because we are going to maximize the area, the surface area that we can use. Okay, now this, clearly it's too long for my screen. It's going to be a bit hard for me to work with this length, so I'm going to just chop it into 2 for the purpose of me filming within that area. So let me just chop it into a shorter length. Okay, that's great. So what we're going to do next is we're going to include a maroon border. Let me just get this into focus. A maroon border here. Alright. Okay, just a strip at the top on both sides, this side and this side. Now the reason why you want it double side is because if you only do one side and you look at the cherry blossom from all angles, you'll see that some of the stamen is blank at the top. So you kind of want it to be the border or the fringe top to be, visible from a 360 view. Okay. So from here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get some maroon crepe. Right, this is my maroon crepe. And I'm going to cut a really tiny, tiny strip. Tiny strip. Okay, this is my strip. And I'm going to pull that up. Of course, you can use the template as a guide. Alright, so this is my template. This is slightly thicker, but that's okay. you know, we can always trim it. We are going to be trimming it later, so that's fine too. Okay. You can see my strip is a bit shorter than this strip, but that's a-okay, that's totally fine. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start grabbing my glue. Okay, I'm going to put this up here. Grab my glue and my glue plate. I'm going to plop a plop of glue right there. Just a little bit, like a smaller than a coin. Okay. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to scrape up some glue and start applying it right at that top edge. Okay. So it's nice to have a paper protection underneath just in case some of the glue comes out. Now you do want this layer to be very, very thin because if it leaks out, it's just going to get very messy. So a very thin layer of glue, you see I'm spreading it out. So I pick up some glue and I really spread it as far as I can. And I know it's a bit hard to see because we're doing white on white. But, you know, follow the gloss of the glue. Okay. Da-da-da-da-da. Da-da-da-da-da. And I don't think I have to go all the way to the end because I don't think it reaches the end. Okay. That looks pretty decent. So I take my colored strip. I'm just going to glue it at the top. Now you don't really have to be worried about being like super neat or super straight because we are going to eventually cut them into very fine strips or fringe them. And you know, it doesn't matter if it's, you know, a little bit crooked or anything like that. Okay, so clearly this is too short, so I'm just going to snip this off. Ta-da! Or if you're hardworking, you can just cut a shorter strip, but I'm just going to stick with this piece for now. And we're going to repeat on the other side. So I've just flipped it over. Like this side, I'm going to let it dry off. And I'm going to work on this side. So that's another reason why we don't want to over apply the glue, because if it's a bit too wet on one side, it's going to be very difficult to glue on the other side. Okay, so if you've accidentally applied too much glue on this side and it's still very soggy here, you know, please wait a little while for that glue to kind of dry out. And once it's kind of dry and ready to be worked on again, that's when you glue your second, the other side, all right, of this maroon border. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing. Apply that glue, stretch it out, pop the glue and stretch it out as far as you can. Okay, you can see why we're not working with hot glue here, because the components are very small and fine, and if you're using hot glue, you have to work really, really fast, and you won't be able to kind of like just take your time with this and achieve that really smooth feel that we want for this part. Okay. Okay, that looks kind of good. So I'm going to plop on that second piece. A word of warning, the dark red shades, the maroons and the dark purples and all that, they tend to color your fingers. So at the end of this class, if your fingers are colored, you know, please be warned. The dye transfers quite easily, especially if you're working it with, you know, your hands and your fingers. But don't worry, it's all washable with just normal soap, so that should be fine. Alright, so that looks pretty good. Alright, what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave this to dry completely. Alright, and once you're done, it should look something like this. Okay, this was the sample I made earlier. Let me just focus here again. This is my camera, so I'm just looking at both sides. Alright, so you get something like this, which is wonderful. Okay, it's all dried already, which is great, because if it's still wet and you cut through it, it's going to ruin your paper. So don't do that. You always wait until it's fully dry. Okay, so once I have this, I'm going to snip off the edges. And I noticed that the top is a little bit uneven. So there are some whites popping up here. It's very minute, you can't see, but I'm just going to be very safe and I'm going to trim. So what I do is I like to fold it up so that I get a very neat cut instead of just cutting from here and that having a risk of it being like zigzaggy. So I just fold it up so that I can cut a straight line through the top and make it as even as, and I'm really just snipping a very thin layer out just to even it out. See, this is all I'm snipping. It's barely anything, but it's good to snip that away so that it's a very clean top. Okay, that looks like that. Ta-da! Very nice and clean. So right now I'm gonna get back my template. Okay, template B, and from here I'm just gonna cut out that size or that width that I need for my individual statements. Okay, so the good news is that with the entire strip, you can cut out multiple statements, which is wonderful. Instead of like working on them one by one, it's going to take you a lot more time. So this just really helps to, economies of scale. Okay, so I have all of these that I can use as my statements. So I'm just going to use one and I'm going to show you what I do to it. So now when you're going to fringe, and fringe just means we're cutting tiny strips all the way across. Not all the way across, sorry. I'm going to leave the bottom, all right, uncut so that I can apply glue at the bottom. So we're going to cut from the top, all right, this way, tap, 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 leaving that bottom maybe one quarter of the base uncut. So we're going to do this rather slowly. Let me make sure I'm focused. Okay, and we're going to go. I would say generally, the stamen should be really fine. Not too fine until, you can't, like, it gives you a headache. But fine enough so that it looks delicate and sweet, yeah? Okay, so your stamen should look something like that. Let me just spread it out so you can see how fine they are. All right, again, cut them at a width that you're comfortable with. What I usually like to say is kind of like follow the width of a toothpick, all right? But again, follow your comfort level. If you need them to be a bit thicker and then you go back and trim them, that's totally fine too. All right, so that's your little stamen here. And the last part we're gonna cut out is your number C. So I'm gonna get back my maroon crepe. Okay, I'm going to fold it so that it's thinner for me to cut. And I'll cut it along the height of template C, all right? And for your reference, all the templates have lines indicating the direction of the grain of the crepe, which is quite obvious. So if you see from this, you can see the grain of the crepe is going vertically, all right? So that's the direction which you follow so that you're able to stretch. See here, you have the lines indicating it should be up and down. Same for here, up and down, and same for C, all right? And that just helps you know which direction to cut. So I have that height, and I'm now just going to cut that width using the template as a guide again. Okay, I'll just cut 2 for now since we don't need so many yet. Okay, I'm going to get my wire. Let's do the wire first. All right, so we have all the components, right? We have our petals, we have our stamen, we have our collar. Let's get our wire. So this is a number 26 wire. What I like to do is I like to chop it up into 4. And I don't measure, I just go by what we Singaporeans call agaration, which just means we are doing it very roughly without any exact measurements. Okay, so I've chopped it up into 4. You can get some pliers, and what I like to do is I like to make a little loop at the top. And this is just something that I do, excuse me, this is something I do for a lot of my flowers because when you make a loop, you are increasing the surface area that your flower can stick on. The different petals can stick on, right? If it's just like that, it's very little space, right? It's a little surface area for them to grip on. So having a little loop just gives them a little bit more to hang on to. Right, so I've just done 2 for now. Okay, I'm going to top up my glue because that glue looks a bit dry. Okay. So first things first, let's just use 1. The first thing that goes on is your stamen. So I'm going to, again, grab some glue with my toothpick. Going to apply it right at the base of my stamen. Okay. Then I'm going to stick it onto my wire. It doesn't really, well, I would say don't glue it so high. Probably glue it at the bottom 1/3, all right? Don't go more than half, otherwise your wire might poke out, right? So glue it kind of like the lower third of your stamen, all right? And then you fold it in. Okay, you fold that part in and you roll it down. Okay, and make sure to pinch at the base. And you can see very naturally your stamen would split open and becomes really cute. And like that. Ta-da! So that's your stamen, really cute. Next we're gonna do a collar. So grab that maroon piece. I'm gonna stretch it out a little bit just to thin it out gently. Okay, again, grab your glue. Same thing, lower half, lower third, right? Apply glue. Then wrap it at the base. So I align it to the same base as your white stamen, all right? Same base line, and then same thing, wrap it around. And there, that's your collar. Right, give it a tight squeeze as well. Kind of tight pinch right at the base here. Pinch it down. This is great. So your stamen's done, your collar is done. Now for the petals. Okay, the petals from here, we're gonna do a little trick to make them more, how do I say? Make them more upright. So what I like to do, okay, I'll pinch the base of this petal, pinch it, and give it a twist. All right, twist like that. Okay, so if you contrast, the petals just immediately became kind of rounder compared to this one because you kind of pinched it and you give it like kind of like a tighter base. Okay, so that we're going to do that for all our petals. Twist and pinch, twist and pinch. Now I would say just make sure that little kind of twisted stick at the bottom, make sure it's about, you know, 1/3 and not too high. All right, so for example, if you go too high, your petal will just become really small. If you compare this one and this one, all right, this one I've pinched it and squeezed it a little too high, and that's not wrong. That will just give you a smaller petal, but for me, I like to do it just like 1/3. So I will just reverse that. 1/3 would be fine. Okay, and also make sure it's not too short. Like if it's too short, then it's going to be hard for you to glue it onto your stamen and collar because there's not a lot of surface area. So I think 1/3 would be a very comfortable length for us. Okay, so I have 5 this way. So now we're just going to plop some glue and I apply glue right at that twisted stick. Okay, twisted stick. And we're going to snap it on. So I'm squishing it on. And while I'm doing that, I can also pull back the petal. Okay. Okay. And because it's white glue, it does take a while to dry. So make sure you kind of hold it and press it inwards. All right. And give it that firm pressure. And hold it for like a few seconds. All right. Like 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000. Okay. So yes, sometimes the petals will come out, they won't cooperate. So just hold on to them a bit longer. And then very gently leave them be. So what I'm doing is I'm applying the petals kind of in a round. You can go clockwise, anti-clockwise, there's no rule. You can even just start wherever and stop wherever, but the goal is just to fill up that round, right? So it doesn't really matter how you start it or how you finish it as long as it goes in a round. Okay. So what I'm showing you now is just I'm applying the glue one by one. But if you want, you can go ahead and just apply glue to all your 5 petals and then proceed to kind of stick them on one by one, but in, you know, without kind of having to put down, pick it up, put down, pick it up. Oop, let me focus that. There we go. Okay. And if you want, you can keep it closed. That will give you a different look for your cherry blossom, but I like the open look. So I press out my petals. Okay, and you can just play with the stamen and spread them out if you want. And that's one flower. Ta-da! That's one flower here. Okay. You can see it's totally uneven. It's kind of like a bit lopsided, but that's fine because again, we're going for that general effect of all the flowers together. Okay. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to repeat that so that everyone gets to see. So let me grab more petals here. Alright, so you get another practice round. I get the wire and I get the collar. Let me just recut the stamen. Cut one more stamen here. If you have a very sharp pair of scissors, that would be perfect for this because we're working with, you know, such fine components. Okay, so same thing. Going on the stamen. Ta-da! And get the collar. So I hope you can see by now that it's actually not very difficult in theory, right? Technically speaking, these are not very difficult things. But it's because it's so small that you really do need a lot of control and, you know, a lot of care. Okay, there we go. And a lot of patience. Okay, with my petals, we're gonna do the same thing. Twist, 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 twist. So here I'm going to show you what I would usually do. Instead of like applying glue to the petals and sticking it on, I'm just going to apply glue to all of them at one go. Okay, and then stick them on one by one in one go. Okay. Okay. So spreading glue now. Da, da, da. Going to apply glue to all my petals. Okay, and then I'll pick this up and I'll glue them on one by one. So this helps speed up the process because I can, you know, I'm still holding my stamen and I'm not really putting it down. And I'm just pressing it. I'm holding and applying pressure to these as I pick up my next petal and plopping it on. And I'm gonna okay, so that's faster in that sense. Just gonna squish everything, squish, squish, squish. And I'm gonna, while I'm squishing, I'm gonna pull back the petals as well. Alright, so I'm gonna leave my flowers to dry and I'm gonna show you how to make the buds. Okay, so again, we're gonna take the same thing, our 26 wire with the loop at the top. Okay, and I'm gonna take some either scrap paper or pink paper. Alright, so let's say I'm using this paper. I'm gonna cut maybe a rough square-ish. Alright, it doesn't have to be exact. You just stretch it out and you roll it into a ball. So this could be any color. But I do recommend like a light color so that it doesn't show through. Like don't choose black because it might show through the crepe. Okay, just wrap it into a ball the size of a bud, so something like this size. Okay, or this size. Sorry, I should show you from this, like this size. Okay, and then you dip. What I like to do is I dip my wire in glue. Oopsie. And then I'll stick it in. I'm just sticking it in like that. Okay. Now don't worry if it's not even or centered, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to take another piece of crepe, like this time like a square after it's stretched out. I'm going to apply some glue, oopsie, to the four corners. I'm going to apply this, use this to wrap up that little ball that I've made. So I'm going to, oopsie, it's coming off. Okay. So I fold the top, so I put it in a diamond, right, in this diamond. Okay, I'm holding this part here, the top half, I'm going to fold it down. And I'm going to fold down the wings. Ta-da, ta-da. And you just squish it all together. Squish, 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 squish. Right? Ta-da! So that's like a little ball. Okay. And you need 2 petals for this. So I have some extra petals here. Okay, these will be kind of like for the bud. Right? It's not just a ball. It's like, if I can show you, it's a little bit peeking out. Let me try to zoom in on this for you. Okay, you can see it's kind of like 2 petals at the side and the little ball inside peeking out. Right, so that's kind of the effect we want. We don't want it to be just a ball. We want them to be petals there too. So I'm going to grab these petals. Okay, I'm going to apply glue up the bottom half, all right? Okay, so this half down, I'm going to wrap it around. Now you don't have to be super neat about this, but what's important is the height. So I want it to be this tip to be aligned with the tip of my ball, all right? If you go too high, all right, you're gonna have to wrap it downwards, then you won't see that little opening. So push it down until the height of your petal matches the height of your ball, all right? And then squish that base. Okay, so if I'm gonna zoom in, let me focus. There, that's the half, if you can see it. This is the half. Okay, and then we repeat it on the other side. Squish the bottom. So the reason why I don't put glue towards the top is because you kind of want that little opening to be seen. If you glue it down, then it'll be very, it'll be tight and you might not see that opening. So having that little kind of slight gradual opening really helps to look like, okay, it's blooming. There are petals, it's going to be open soon. That's your little bud. Right, so to complete your bud, you need like little kind of like leaves. I guess they're leaves. I don't really know what else to call them. These parts here. Let me zoom in for you. Focus, 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 camera. Camera's not really cooperating. There we go. Okay. So they're very easy to cut out. I don't really follow a template for these. All right, so just get your maroon crepe. All right, I'll use this, okay? If you want a guide, I would say follow the height of your petal shape A. All right, that would be a very good height. You want the leaves to be very lightweight and thin, so I'm going to stretch it out. Stretch out my maroon. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw for you the shapes. I think that will be very helpful. So the shapes you're going to draw, okay, I'll just draw here. Draw kind of like a narrow leaf, like that. Okay, or it can be like that. Okay, something very narrow that looks like a leaf. Or you can do a double, like that. All right, so all different ways. You can even do it right in the middle, like that. Multiple ways for you to do it. Just follow which design you like. All right, and feel free to cut out like multiple shapes. So I'm gonna do an accordion fold for my maroon crepe and just cut out a random shape. Like that. So So that's one shape that I can go for. Otherwise, I take my crepe, I do an accordion fold. This time I'm going to cut one with a slit. Okay, so something like that. Ta-da! And you want to cut 3 per bud. So I have 6 now, which is great. I'm gonna pop more glue on. Apply some glue at the base of my leaf. Just the bottom third would be great. Then you're gonna stick it on. Like that. And it's nice for it to pop out. I think it doesn't have to glue too closely to the bud. You want it to open up and reveal the bud. So with 3, I like to glue it in a triangle. So 1, 2, and then 1 more here. And there it is. That's your little bud. Okay, just ta-da! Very cute, very demure. I don't know where that trend came from. I've been seeing it all over TikTok. Right, so you have your flowers and your bud. Okay. Right now we have our flowers, our buds, and I'm just going to show you how to wrap that little stalk. Alright, so that we don't see the wire. I'm going to bring in my dark brown crepe. Okay, again, I've just cut out a little strip here, but I'm going to cut even a thin strip. Okay, something like that, and I'm going to stretch it out. The width isn't very important as long as it's not too thick. Alright, maybe if you want, you can follow, I think you can follow the height of C. Let me just bring out C. Alright, it's roughly the height of a template C. Okay, and we're going to use this strip to wrap the stems so that it will look something like that. Okay, basically covering up this part. You won't have to wrap the entire wire. Just half would do, or at least 2/3 of the wire step. Okay, and I'll explain why in a minute. So what I'm doing is I'm just spreading my glue in a very thin layer on my strip, my wrapping strip. It doesn't have to be too thick, okay, because the pressure from wrapping itself is quite handy in like holding it together. Okay, so what I do is I start from the base. I fold, this is the tip of my wrapping strip. I'm going to fold it and wrap it right at the base of my bud. Okay, and then this is with one hand I'm tugging and pulling, the other hand I'm twisting. Twist, twist, twist. Okay, then from here I'm going to tug it downwards, diagonally downwards, and I'm going to continue to twist. Twist, twist, twist. Okay, and I'm just kind of pinching and tugging as I go to apply pressure so that I know it's a very tight wrap. And then once I reach the bottom 1/3, I'm going to, you can either cut it or I like to just pull it or tear the paper and just squish that in. Okay, we don't have to wrap this because this part we're going to connect it to our main stalk. So the bottom doesn't have to be wrapped. Okay, so that's that. Then I'm going to take out my flower, my next piece. Same thing, wrap the tip, the top of my wrapping strip over the bottom of each petal. Gonna wrap it around a few times. Then I'm gonna pinch, gonna tug it downwards in the diagonal, and I'm gonna twist. Now some people like to wrap this way, so they'll go like that, and they'll pull, and like that, and they pull, and you know, if that works for you, that's fine, but I like this twisting method. I think it allows me to work a lot faster, and I'm just making sure everything's really, really tight. So I'm just topping up glue because some of the glue has dried out. So same thing here, I'm going to wrap and wrap downwards. to the bottom third. Ta-da! Alright, so we've wrapped our bud and our blooms, and I would just like to add a disclaimer that wrapping is one of the more challenging parts of crepe paper flower making, especially because these wires are so thin, and it does take a little practice to get the movements right. So if you want, I can always recommend to practice with something a bit thicker. So you can get a wooden skewer and practice here. So let me just, for example, grab any strip, okay? And where's my little toothpick? My toothpick's here. Okay, you're gonna pop some glue on. And this is optional. If you are, you know, a master at wrapping, then it's totally fine. You can skip this step. But I'm just recommending this because I'm recalling that this is the part that a lot of people struggle with when I'm teaching the class. So okay, you get a wooden skewer. Again, let's recap. The start of your strip, you just wrap it around the wire, or in this case the wooden skewer. Press it down firmly, go around a few times, so I'm twisting it. Okay, and then when you're ready, tug it downwards in a diagonal and twist with your right hand and tug with your left. Okay, if you want to do it this way, you can too. It might just take a bit longer. Alright, but it's whatever you're comfortable with. So I'm just going to go ahead and this one. See, I'm just twisting and pulling and tugging and just making sure everything's really, really tight. Okay, and that's how you wrap it. Yeah. Okay, so once you're done with wrapping a few, right, I think it'll be a good idea to wrap several. Now it's time to kind of assemble everything into a stalk. Now, before you start assembling, I think it's very helpful you kind of just have a vision in mind of what you want your cherry blossom stalk to look like. Where is it going to be placed? You know, how's it going to sit? So, for example, today's I'm using like a little vase. This is a very short, stout vase. Okay, so for a short, stout vase, let me show in this camera, short, stout vase, you want your stalks to be short and stout too. So short here, and short there, because if it's too long, for example, if it's too long like that, all right, it might be a bit unbalanced, you know, like it's a little bit weird. So I'm getting them to be a bit shorter, and longer stalks like these can go for longer vases, all right? So I hope you kind of just get my idea that, you know, you kind of want to design your stalk according to the size of your vase. See, short stalks and short vases kind of balance it out. Alright, so I'll just leave that here as a sample. Oh no, it'll block a little bit. Okay, and then I'm going to wrap over here. Alright, so what I want to do is I grab a number 20. This is your thicker wire. Okay, I'm going to chop this into half so that, because I'm making a short stalk for the purpose of this video. Okay, then I'm going to grab some light brown crepe. And I'm going to chop another thin strip similar to the dark brown one. And I'm going to apply some glue. Again, just to reiterate, if you do not have two shades of brown, you can just stick to one shade. Or you can even try green, that's fine. So I spread some glue, and what I like to do for every stalk is to start with buds. All right, it just has a feel to it when you start a stalk with buds. Let me just place this one here for everyone to see. Okay, buds at the top. All right, you don't have to, but it'll be, I guess it gives that effect, you know, that nice starting point. So I start with a bud. I'm overlapping, I'm connecting this thick 20 wire to about half of its base. Okay, and then we're going to wrap it around that same way. Pinch it down, twist, and pull and tug downwards. Okay, then go ahead and add your second one. Just connect it to the side. And again, wrap around. and you keep kind of moving downwards. You can kind of adjust it as you go along, right? There really is no rule for me. I like my flowers to be kind of very close together. So instead of very far apart like down here, I like them to be pretty close together so that they are really like clusters of flowers and it feels very abundant and very full. And I like to, I'm going to top up some glue because it's a bit dry here. I like to go all around, so it's not just front facing, it's kind of like some at the back, some at the front, you know, it's like a 3D. Okay, so this part, I guess it's the fun part because it's really kind of up to your imagination how you want to group the blooms together. And you know, if you want a bud down here too, that's totally fine. So I'm just going to add this bud here. I'm going to plop a bit more glue. You can see because I'm doing everything very tight together, it's looking very full and abundant, as opposed to if you have everything kind of like very far apart, spread apart. Yeah. Okay, so I'm just wrapping all the way to the end of my strip. And before I do anything to the top, I recommend highly kind of reinforcing that base because right now it's very top heavy. So what I like to do is I like to take the other half of the 20 that we had. Okay, I'm going to chop it into half again. And I'm going to reinforce the base by wrapping these sticks over. So I'm going to grab more brown crepe. See? And by adding these kind of shorter 20 sticks, it just really helps to add weight to that base so that it isn't top heavy, it just balances out everything. So I'm just wrapping these together. And once I reach that bottom, I'm going to just reverse and go back to the top. See? So it was tilted this way before, but I've reached the bottom, so I'm going to tilt it back towards the top. And everything else, I just squish it. Okay. So this helps to thicken that base as well, so that it looks more balanced visually. Okay. And so if I'm going to start kind of adjusting it, I can start kind of like twisting and tilting it, all right, and bending it in weird shapes. And then kind of just go with your gut. You can even kind of go extreme and bend it this way. And really just play around with it. And of course, I would, definitely recommend playing around with it together with the other branches. So if I have another branch, it can go this way and then this way. Okay, and then you put it together in your vase. I'll show it on the iPhone camera. Okay, something like that. Very abundant and also very free, very carefree, Ta-da, ta-da. Okay, closer look. So you can see we just, over this time we just made a few blooms. I had to make some off camera, and these are pre-made stocks. So it's definitely a lot of work to achieve something like that. Take it easy, take your time, don't stress about it. I would say, maybe if you do a few blooms in a day and you just consolidate over the weekend, you should be able to create a bunch like that and just arrange it to your liking. Yes? think what's so great about this that there really are no rows. You know, you can kind of like arrange it however you want. I kind of like 3 stalks together. I think that gives it some balance. So you can do like one center, one in the center, one off to the side, and one really off to the side. And that gives more like I think that's a more ideal flower arranging look. Okay, something like that. Yeah. Alright, so I think that's all I have to say. In terms of color protection, you can give it a nice spray of color UV protection from Krylon that comes in a spray bottle. And what else is there? I would say generally these don't fade too much. Like I'm just going to pull out this example. This is an older cherry blossom version. Alright, you can see it is faded compared to this. Alright, these are new ones, these are older ones. It has faded, but it's not so terrible that there's no more pink. It actually looks more antique and more vintage looking. So it's not bad per se. But I just want to give you kind of a heads up that this might be what it fades into if you do not put any color protection on your cherry blossoms. Alright, so I hope this was a very fun tutorial. I know a lot of people have been requesting this, and I'm very glad to be finally able to kind of make this video for you. And I hope it wasn't too hard. I hope it's really, really fun. And you know, the funny thing is I was teaching this workshop in August to a lovely group of ladies, and they were saying like if they start now they could probably have enough for Chinese New Year next year. So I thought, yes, actually that's true. I should start launching this video very soon so that you can start crafting slowly in time for Chinese New Year. Alright, so I think that's all. I have to say thank you for following me along this long tutorial, and I hope you guys have a great day.